All right, so
Can I just play off on that?
I have no doubt you can. For hours, in fact. Go
Well,
ahead.
the issue, and I was a small law firm at one time, and now we have 6 lawyers. The small law firm gets pitched by a lot of what I consider to be like third-party people, like magazines, or like, hey, let's advertise at the school board meetings or whatever. And I think what we have, or at least in my office over the years, is I don't do a method of advertising without putting a unique phone number out there, because you can spend the $1,500 for the ad in whatever magazine it will be. They will pitch you the world that, hey, it'll work. And you don't know whether or not that actually brought you a client. It may bring you visibility, but at the end of the day, it doesn't help your ROI. So, I mean, there are companies out there where I'll give you the websites where you can get this phone number very cheap, $5 a month, and you can set it up so that you can get an email when somebody calls from that direct mail piece or whatever it is that you're advertising on. So at the end of the year, if I spent $1,500, I can't even attribute it to a client. It's not any good. And they always go after the solo people because the big firms, they already have big budgets and they come after us as the small practitioners, and a lot of that stuff is a ripoff.
So you're going to hear a lot from David Haenel, who is one of, as I mentioned, just a fantastic marketer. So let's start off by, since you're talking, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure.
And then we'll go down and actually introduce the other 2 panelists. And if you could talk, just for starters, your practice area. What do you do? Why do you do it? And then we'll come back and talk about some of the tools that you may use. So let's just start with the ID part.
Okay. I started with one website in 2004. I practiced primarily criminal, traffic ticket, and DUI defense. We started in Sarasota with doing traffic tickets, and then I didn't want to pigeonhole myself into thinking I was just a ticket lawyer, because we actually do a lot more than that. And then over time, that would be almost 9 years later, we have 52 websites. A lot of those are very specific in the area in which geographically we are. So if someone types in, we have an office in Orlando, we have one in Tampa. If someone types in those geographic areas with the words that I'm going after, hopefully we come up on a relatively high web presence. But I love the marketing aspect of the law, so to speak. And I love being here and helping you guys, because we have experimented with everything possible when it comes to marketing. Between movie theaters, urinals, everything that you can possibly imagine, we have probably tried other than billboards. So obviously what has been worked best for us is the internet and Google and keywords and AdWords and stuff like that.
When we come back, I want to talk about whether urinal ads convert, but that's I'll let you do. I'll bet you they do incredibly well. But talk about a captive audience.
I'm Sherry DeWitt, and my law firm is the DeWitt Law Firm. And we have probably within the last maybe 4 years really ventured into the social media advertising in a pretty big way. We have a very developed informational website. My practice areas are primarily commercial litigation, family law, and real estate related litigation and probate litigation. So they're pretty varied areas of practice, but I've been trained and have 30 years experience in all of them. So the challenge for us has been how to market all of them without diluting the effectiveness of any of that cross-marketing. So we do have several different websites like David has, depending on the topic area. And one of the things that we've learned, because we've been very fortunate, we got stung a little bit with some of our website development, because everybody out there thinks they can develop a website, but they really can't. But except for that, we put our toe in a little bit, see how it works, and then if it does, we jump in a little bit more. And what we've done has been really very effective. One of the things that we did, I'm the legal analyst for WDBO, and I was their legal analyst for the Casey Anthony trial. So we developed an infographic that we put on our website for the Casey Anthony trial, and it went viral. All the national newspapers throughout the country published it on their newspapers and lots of blogs, and During the height of that case, we were getting over 1,000 hits a day to our website just to view that infographic. So you can,
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? So just as a bit of recap, target audience was the consumer press or people reading the consumer press. You took a little bit of time using the thought leadership channel to target, really you hit lawyers, existing clients, and future clients with that strategy, right? Really impressive.
right. And anybody who was just interested in following the case, and it was a
I
national
would call
case.
all of those potential clients.
So,
So let's chat with Dennis for a second, and then I want to come back to that. And especially, both of you guys have mentioned multiple sites. Those are actually called subject matter microsites, technically, and I want to get back into that as well because it's a pretty interesting strategy. So, Mr. Chin.
I also have a couple of websites, I think 3, but they're all down right now for the next couple of days on my web developer, which I really hope he knows what he's doing. Puts them all together. So, but I also have a blog that is very specific for landlord-tenant matters and addresses some mobile home, which I tend to get a lot of calls from. But I also, as far as social media, I'm involved in Avvo, and well, basically the blogs. That's what I mainly use.
Those are your big drivers.
Right,
Okay.
and Google Places to a certain extent, but yeah.
Okay, definitely want to come back to that, so hold that. So, David, what I'd like to ask every one of you is, and you've already touched on it a bit, but could you give me your top 3 marketing channels that you think are most effective, where you drive the majority of your leads? Where are you getting to your target audience? What is your most effective lever that you're pulling?
Clearly, the number one would be our websites, and looking through the analytics daily on those websites to see how people are ultimately finding us. So that would be number one. Number 2, you spoke about this earlier, is we just got done publishing our 3rd book on Florida DUI law. So when people come and they want to hire us or potentially hire us, they can go to the website, they can download the publication, or they can get it when they come to the office. So, when you publish like that, you're absolutely right in the fact that they definitely think and ultimately hopefully know that, we're on top of our game when it comes to, DUI law. And 3rd, and I'm not pitching Avvo, but I'm just telling you, I track my analytics every minute of the day, and I can see when people come to our site where they're coming from, and Avvo is absolutely up there with our number 3 referral source, without a doubt. And Joe, my IT guy, is here, and he looks at them as well, and we're just seeing continual traffic to Avvo, from Avvo to our money site. So, that's what I consider to be the main criminal site. So it's amazing for us.
Wow, thank you. And we did not plan.
No.
David, here, that's awesome. What about you, Sherry?
well, I have a radio show on WDBO.
Awesome.
It's every Sunday at 10 o'clock, and I've been doing that for a number of years now. And that generates a lot of business for me. In addition to that, they have their own website. And so there's cross referrals between their website and my website. They also have other events that they advertise and do different things. So there's a lot of social media around them, which cross-references to me. So it's the show and their social media connections. Also my website. I get a lot of hits on that, a lot of inquiries from that. As I said, it's very informational as a site. And that's probably the number 2. The number 3, is probably just from people who think they know me better than they do. Because I always, in my forms, I always ask, even when they call and they don't come in, where they heard about me from, how they found out about me. And I have 2 or 3 clients every month that say that they found out about me from my TV ad. I don't have a TV ad.
That's awesome.
But when you're out there and your name is out there, they think that you do things that you don't do, so.
And that is, on the branding front, when we talk about branding, I'm actually a big believer that if you go out and spend on brand, you're wasting your money. But if you do a lot of effective things, it all amalgamates into ultimately a brand. And that's what you're doing. You're doing a bunch of smart stuff. They see your picture on social media, they hear you on the radio, and they put the 2 together, and they actually see you talking to them. And really, you're branding. and so when they need to hire, they think they know you. Great. Dennis?
For me, the top ones would be the sites like Avvo, Justia, and there was another one that I had, but I stopped using that. But I answering questions on those sites, and I get responses. I get people that call and said that they found, they didn't actually post a question, but they were doing a search, they found a response, and they decided to call me because I'm the one that answered it. Google Places, I mentioned earlier, I never really did much with it until I found this one person posted a bad review on Google Places saying that I was only interested in money. And I looked at everything, figured out that this is actually not my client. I represent a landlord in this case. He's a tenant and was upset because he had to pay my fees. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, how can I handle this? I can't go asking for people to post reviews for me because I don't think that's allowed by the bar. So I decided to just send an email to a number of my clients with a link to that bad review and say, hey, I'm really concerned because this person had a bad opinion about my service. How do you feel about my service? And a number of them went ahead and said, I was really happy with the service, and I'm going to post a review for you. And so I got a number of good reviews as a result of that without actually asking them to post a review for me. And that's been helpful.
Not fearing the bad review. That's in the Working the Social Networks webinar I talked about. We can talk more about it here, but handling it like that to where you bring forces to bear or where you simply respond to it in a really constructive way. The reality is when consumers go out and they see a bunch of positive reviews, they tend to think they're all fake, right? Unless you can layer in some level of if they see that constructive dialogue happening, very, very valuable.
One of the things that I want to say is, without a doubt, content drives results. A lot of it doesn't really matter, the avenue that you take. If your content isn't any good, you're not going to get a result from it, even though it's the best avenue. And just like you were saying, answering questions on Avvo, that's how people see you. It's your content. If they like your content, they're going to contact you. If they don't, they're not. If you put bad content up there, it doesn't matter what you do. And so, like the Casey Anthony infographic, if it were bad, if it were wrong, can you imagine it coming back to me? So, what you put out there, and you were talking about information driven and all of that, is so critically important.
So, and one thing I'd love to hear is, so both David and Sherry, you said you had multiple websites. You have a couple. Sherry, how many do you have?
I just have 2.
Okay. So you have 2, or do you have 2 plus your blog, Dennis?
I have, 2 plus my blog.
Okay. Maybe let's start with you, David. For beginners, you have how many? 52, you said?
And they're all around a theme. Like you talked about theme, like I started because I acquired this phone number, 1-800-FIGHT-IT. I was able to establish a theme back in 2004. So every one of my sites has a fight theme. Fight your ticket, fight your tickets, fight your DUI, fight your case, fight everything. That's what our slogan and that's what our tagline, we can get you through this. I have a tagline and that's all goes into all of our marketing. We walk around with shirts, got arrested, back, get us, like the milk theme. That's what we're constantly pushing, is that theme, so they're ingrained in people's mind.
And so I think Sherry nailed it when she said it's all about the content. So on 52 sites, how do you deliver good content?
Well, on some of the sites, I'm not updating them, obviously. I consider certain sites to be, higher traffic. Some of the other sites may be geographic, and I'm not updating them as much as I should be, so they're just kind of sitting there stagnant in hopes that someone will ultimately find them by putting in a geographic term, maybe what we call a long tail keyword search, and ultimately find it and then find the video. But it's impossible to do it on a daily basis. But I do have a team that I use, and we're constantly, I'm primarily writing content and trying to get that up on the different sites. But it's a project. It's a full-time job. You asked about 10%. I mean, I spend a lot more than 10% doing the marketing aspect.
And do you think that, but you would surely agree that even though, let's say you've invested 20%, that the return, that you have a much larger practice because of that investment.
Oh, absolutely. And when I look at the analytics and I see the searches that people are putting up, if I see the same type of search over and over again, I'll say, That's important. Let's do a video. I'll do a 2-minute video on license suspension issues and put it up on the site. And the traffic will just completely go crazy on that particular page because that's relevant to what people are looking for.
It's just brilliant. It's brilliant. So, both Sherry and Dennis, so if you could talk a little bit. Now, Sherry, do you blog?
I do every once in a while. I don't as religiously as I probably should. But if there's something of noteworthy, one of the things I do, the thing I do on my radio show is changes in the law, new developments in the law. And so I'll write an article for my website on each and every show summarizing the change in the law, and I'll do a blog on that sometimes as well.
That's smart. So you're taking the same content, repurposing it in a way that you can hit in both channels.
That's the idea, because if the content is good, again, you want to get it out there in as many ways as you can, and it'll come back to you.
Okay. So Dennis, you've said to me in the past, actually I think you said to me last, or sometime this week, it all blurs together, that your blog is probably your biggest driver. Is that?
No, it's a big driver, but the biggest driver is actually Avvo.
Seriously?
Yeah, because when people call, I'll ask them how they find me, and quite often it's internet. I said, well, do you happen to recall what you did? And they might say it's a Google search. And I'm like, okay. But I would say probably 70% of the time they said, oh, it's some AVV. I'm like, Avvo, okay. And so a lot of them come to me through Avvo.
That's awesome.
The blog, I don't update that a whole lot, but because the content is so specific, it's a eviction-related blog geared towards primarily tenants, but landlords also. And I don't think there's a whole lot of information on that topic. And so when people put in their searches, they get the blog.
So there was an interesting article that I actually picked up on Twitter, and it was from the JD Supra folks. And the hypothesis was that, I think the question of the article was, are we in a post-blogging world? Meaning that blogging takes so much time that it's not really an effective medium. And actually what you're saying completely undercuts that you're saying because you have good content there, even though it's more static and you're not updating it on a weekly basis, simply having that blog there is something that people run into almost like a subject matter microsite. Right. And they look at you and say, this person knows what they're talking about, and that helps reinforce that you're an expert in the area. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, basically. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you guys think of that? So blogging in general, the question I get repeatedly, and then I also want to come to these two lingering questions that we have that I said we'd get back to as part of the panel. So tell us about your blogging strategy, all of you guys, and do you think it is worth the investment? So you're saying yes, you absolutely do.
Oh, yeah, I don't really spend that much time doing it.
So you're using it more as that subject matter microsite.
Right.
I mean, Sherry, what about you?
I'm putting in the time anyway in other ways in order to do the content and update myself on the content. So it doesn't take a lot of time, like Dennis was saying. And once you're out there and you've got something out there, it stays out there and it comes back to you. So I definitely think that it's worth the time. And I do it subject by subject. So it's very clear and crisp on one little subject area, not very complicated. But summarizes what everybody needs to know in probably 2 or 3 paragraphs, and that's it.
Okay. And I do think that that's one of the keys where I think a lot of lawyers feel that they need to have a white paper on whatever they're writing about. And most people get really tired after about 3 paragraphs. And we can criticize the modern web and all sorts of things, but the reality is, if you're trying to get people informed, a great way to blog is to be very succinct and to summarize and often refer them to other longer articles in the blogosphere.
Or back to your law firm if they want more information, which is the whole point.
Yes.
You know, you just want to educate them a little bit so that they know enough that they have to come to you, the expert, for more information into how to handle the case. So yeah, you don't need to do a law review article in a blog.
Okay.
You shouldn't, actually.
David, what are your
I,
thoughts
I, I
on
agree.
blogging?
I agree. I absolutely agree. And, we'll set up Google alerts in, like in the DUI space, for example. And when someone gets arrested for a DUI, whether it be in Florida or out of state, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about, the breath test, and we'll just hit it. And then obviously it's fresh content. Google loves fresh content, and the blog is part of the website. It's all, there, and it's been wonderful for us. When I can see, I'm looking at the analytics, I know exactly what people are searching for. Lindsay Lohan just got arrested. We'll do a study, a story on it. She just got arrested in New York for leaving the scene of an accident. That's what people are searching.
That's awesome. But you also, so how big is your media team that backs you up?
Well, we have Joe, and then we have some outsourcers that we use. So I would say at any one time, probably three max.
So you are definitely putting meaningful resources, both in time and money, behind this presence and having this constant temporal information out there that people in the criminal area can attach to, or that they will find or show up high in the search.
Hopefully, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So there was a question back here, and I'd love if you'd ask it again, and then we can, I think it's a great starting place for a different vector here.
My question was, I've been seeing more and more of the blog radio, and what what the panel thought about using that as a tool.
So podcasting.
And let me preface it with, I'm not really savvy in social media. I don't have Twitter.
I mean, again, you're in the majority. You're not in the minority.
I have
so.
Facebook, but nothing. I haven't put anything for my practice on Facebook. And I'll be honest, I'm still a little leery.
I get it. It's the myth that I put up there. You're thinking of Sandra Bullock. Do any of you do podcasting?
No, I wouldn't know where to start.
I've done podcasting. I didn't get great results from it. I've done it twice, and I haven't done it again. It goes out there. It's kind of goes out there while you're doing the presentation. So what I've done is I give a lot of live presentations, and sometimes they want to podcast it at the same time, and I'm fine with that. But maybe within a week or two after that, I'll get some response from it, but it's not long lasting. It doesn't stay out there for a very long time.
What about you, David? Anything?
We don't do it. I just have this innate sense when I think about how people find us. I think about what it is that I try and find. I open up Google. If I'm looking for an Italian restaurant, I type in Italian restaurant. I find that that's too far removed to get the quality client. It may get the researcher or the person maybe after they found you somewhere, maybe they're Googling you and find the podcast, maybe you'll get a client that way. But these people, you talk about that 5-minute rule, it's so impulsive. They want you, they want to call you, they want to connect with you. And I take it to the next level. I told you earlier, I'm Skyping with people. At 10:30 at night, the other night, I'm Skyping with some individual. Within 24 hours, he's hiring me. They just... I don't know. They're so impatient because of the way we have created our society now that the podcast, I just haven't gotten into it.
That's absolutely true. I mean, and every single day I see that. I was going into my office this morning, and I had given a seminar Friday evening on foreclosure defense, which is a large part of my practice, and real foreclosure defense, not just delaying tactics. And she had been at the seminar. And she came up to me and said, she loved what I had to say and this and that, but she called the office and she couldn't get in until the following week. So she was coming into my building to have an appointment with another lawyer in my building. And I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, if they can't get in to see you, or they can't contact with you, make contact with you very, very soon, they'll go on to somebody else.
And can I just touch on that, because we have a lot of solo practitioners in here, or smaller firms, where it's just you and a secretary, and if the assistant goes to lunch for an hour, there's nobody manning the phones, the person calls, they get a voicemail, they hang up. I would highly encourage you, if you're a 1 or 2 person firm, to look into products like phonetag.com, where it will convert a voicemail message to an email. So if you're in court and it's lunchtime and there's nobody in the office, and that could be a good case, they're going to hang up. At least they will leave a message. My message says, you've reached my office. There's nobody here right now, but please speak slowly and clearly, and your message will be transcribed to the attorney on call, who will call you back. It automatically converts to an email and sends it to us, and I'm calling them back because there's no one in the office within 2 seconds, and they're like, hey, thanks for calling me back. At least I've engaged them. It's like fishing. I have them on the hook, and all I have to do is reel them in.
What we do is we have an answering service that pretty much does the same thing, but when they call, they answer the phone to a law firm. So it does sound like somebody's there. They said, we're not available, and they'll send us an email. So it's the same idea.
Yeah. Critical.
Yeah, you know, there's, in web development, there are a couple of themes that come together here. And so one of them is, there's a book that's called Don't Make Me Think. And it's all about, you know, somebody can pick up an iPad and they intuitively understand how to use it. And I would use that as your guiding principle, in that when people are trying to get a hold of you and they're trying to understand who you are, the more that you make them think, the more difficulty they're going to have in actually getting to know you. So I talked about how you need to be genuine, how you need to build that relationship and actually have passion around what you're doing, right? And so I think it's very easy to go, well, a podcast, that will help show my passion. The problem is, for a lot of people, getting that podcast downloaded and onto whatever device, and when they listen to it or what have you, it makes them think too much. And so again, if you're being false, and you know, so this will come out a lot during our ethics presentation with Brian Tenenbaum. You know, I think so because I've heard him speak before. But you know, being that real person and being really who you are is important. But the more that you make people jump through hoops to understand who that is, it's a challenge. And I think that's why you've seen less podcasting, and it hasn't taken off as well as other social media tools. Is that fair? Do you guys all think that's a fair recap?
I think so.
Okay. And then go ahead, please, ask again.
I'm in a 2-attorney firm, and my question is, do you carve out specific time to tweet and do the social media? Because my challenge is, it's great because it brings in business, but the legal work has to be finished and completed in a timely manner and a quality so that the client remains happy. And so balancing the day of, I could be on all these social medias, but I have to get the legal work done. How do you guys manage that?
We also have 2 lawyers. The other lawyer is my associate, who also happens to be my son, who also happens to be tremendously focused on growing the firm and much more savvy about social media than I am. But together we have to develop a social media plan and what we want to do. So what we do is we have the day only for work. And twice a week, either at 4 or 5 o'clock, we'll stop. And we'll take an hour twice a week to go over what we need to do, who's going to do what, and then I'll fit in my blogs again in the hour in the other 3 days of the week in doing what I need to do, and then he does what he needs to do. But we'll block it off, we'll cut it off at 4 or 5. We will not let it interfere with our workday.
What do you do, Dennis?
Mine's just more haphazard. If I'm up at 2 in the morning, I'll do stuff at that time. Particularly, it just so happens Avvo is what I do. It's I just answer
2 in the
questions.
morning?
Yeah, because I can rather than you know, writing a blog, I can write blog posts at the same time. But I don't do the networking thing that a lot of attorneys do, where they go to various meetings and that sort of thing. I have 2 teenagers and a wife, and that's my time. So if it's 1 or 2 in the morning, that's when I sit down and I work on the computer and do that sort of thing. So.
What do you hire people?
We are, the criminal world seems to be a little bit different. We don't find that people actually will hire you based upon your Facebook page or the fact that you're out there on Twitter. They will hire you after they have somehow found you, researched you, and they're not going to Facebook, in our experience, to determine whether they're going to hire you. They look to third parties, they look to other people's reviews, and we just use that mainly as a credibility thing.
The Facebook business
Yes,
page
absolutely.
or other profile type of outlets.
Right.
To check a box, you found me here, I'm a real person.
Right. We don't feel that, at least in the criminal space, that it's bringing clients for that reason.
I want to just follow up on that for a minute, and that is, people have said that Avvo drives business to their firm, and I'm sure Avvo drives business to my firm as well, but one of the reasons I think Avvo is so important is because it always shows up when you Google somebody's name. Avvo in their rating always shows up. So it can have both a positive and a negative impact on whether or not a client decides to hire a lawyer. If you have a low Avvo rating for whatever reason, that client may not call you. So regardless, Avvo is just so important. And one of the reasons one of the things I think gets lost in all of this is that while social media and getting your name out there and getting people to contact you is important, you can't lose track of the importance of the personal relationship. All the social media does is give you more opportunity to make more personal relationships. And the stronger and the better your personal relationship is with your clients, the higher your Avvo score is going to be, because they're going to feel connected to you and they're going to want to give you a good review. So often we're talking about just tweeting and making connections with all these people, but the real impact is you're just giving yourselves the opportunity for them to come in to make the personal connection, because the personal connection is actually going to give, at least my experience, is actually going to give you much more business 10 times over by personal referrals. We're just talking about, social media and social marketing, where our big sources are. But, one of my huge sources is current and past clients. And that comes from the personal relationships that you develop as a result of having done whatever marketing you're doing. And I don't think you can lose track of that and how important that is, and relates back to Avvo and to social marketing.
Yeah, and I would just add, so drafting off of that for a second and relating it to your question, I think that when you're not used to engaging in social media, it feels that it's going to take a lot of time. However, as I was talking about before, once you just try one outlet, try joining a Facebook group, try joining a LinkedIn group that's relevant to your practice, try Twitter, any one of those, and just get used to how, to Sherry's point, the interaction works. And what you'll find is you'll go, wow, this feels a lot like, I'm a personable person. It feels like I'm at a party, except I can actually ignore what that person says to me, or I can return and address it at a time that's more convenient for me. And you'll find that I'm very much like Dennis. I don't carve any time out, but in between meetings, have you guys ever heard of the Go Gap? So it's the concept of how many of you now, you're sitting there waiting for the bus, something has slowed you down, you're in traffic, hopefully not driving, but you're stuck and you pull out your smartphone, right? That's the Go Gap. And that's when I'm engaged in most of my social media, because it gives me a chance to interact when things are slower. But because I've built up these relationships, it's very easy for me to fill the Go Gap with those times. So, I would just open a Twitter account, follow some people that you find interesting, and they'll follow you back and start offering, see how they offer ideas and see how you offer ideas and see what starts developing. And you'll find that it's actually, you can get really efficient so that I don't think it's a tremendous time suck. But if you're running 52 websites, that's a little bit more of a time suck. But there's a leverage that comes to that. If you start small and start building up, I think a lot of lawyers get it wrong, and then they're like, I have to be everywhere. Really, what happens is if you're a genuine person and you have that genuine interaction that we talked about, and you're not trying to pretend to be someone else, then pretty soon you have this great story to tell that you can layer into 52 websites, and it works, rather than just being a tremendous amount of spam out in the web. I'd love for you to talk about you talked about long tail search. And actually, I want to hold on. Any other questions just before we go into long tail search? Yes, Ash, please.
Do you consider Yelp to be a part of social media?
Yelp?
Yelp, and if you do, then have you ever tried it?
I claim my profile in Yelp. I don't know that we've done a lot of build out on it. I still think that's used primarily for people finding restaurants, and I built it out so that if someone were to Google the name of the firm, that we would come up, on the first page. But we haven't really gone after building it out more than that. I'm not sure a person who is sophisticated, at least in the criminal space, who got arrested, is going to go to the same application that they went to find the Italian restaurant last night to find a good criminal lawyer. I just don't see that nexus.
No, I think this is the place where people can write some comments.
Sure.
If they are happy with the service or if they are dissatisfied with the service. So Yelp is a place where people can.
I think they're going to places before they're going to go to Yelp, or they're going to go to Avvo and post a review before they're going to go to Yelp. That's just been my experience.
What about, do either of you guys focus on Yelp?
No.
Not at all. And I think in Google Places, I think that's where there's likely to be a lot more.
Can you talk about, we said we'd touch on this more, and we will get back. There's a real importance around the long tail of the web, and I want to make sure that we talk about that before we run out of time. But Google Places, how do you use it, and how does it work for you in your practice?
Well, really, it's not, I filled out all the information as much as I can. I have a few reviews on there. I just make sure that my information is current, and my thought is that when someone finds me on some other site, whether it's Avvo or Justia or something else, they're going to Google me. And one of the things, and I just came across it, I found out about Google Places just by Googling myself, and I thought, what is this? And it shows the location on the map. It has all this information, and I thought, well, this is actually useful, especially if people are putting reviews on here.
And it looks a lot like Yelp. So so here's the background on Google Places, by the way. So Google tried to buy Yelp, and it didn't work out. And so they said, all right, we're going to poke a stick in that eye, and we're going to start our own service called Hotpot. The Hotpot didn't go very well because it was separate. It was a website that was not is integrated into Google Search. And they said, okay, that didn't work that well. So we're going to do this. We're going to drop Google local results, Yelp-like results, right in the middle of your search. So have you guys noticed that you used to get a bunch of blue lines of search that would click to other websites, and now you get a map, and that map has all these red bubbles, and you're like, man, I can't, like, how do I get out of this thing? And Google's keeping you captive, rather than, it used to be a pass-through, right? Do no evil. Go to this website. And now suddenly you found that you're in the cul-de-sac of hell. You can't, they won't let you out. Well, that's how Google's changing their strategy, and that they're being much more competitive, even to businesses like mine, to where they're trying to keep you on the Google site, and it's starting to become much more of like the AOL portal strategy. Because of that, I think Google Places is really important. At least it's something that you should learn about, and I would argue that many of you should have a profile there. Because if they integrate it with search, most people are finding you through search. So yeah, it's arguably competitive with Avvo, but it's really important. And is it more important than Yelp? I think it depends where you are. I agree with David in that I think Yelp realized a long time ago that their strength was restaurants, and they have put so many of their resources into restaurants to where it's almost considered this three-way race between Yelp, Urban Spoon, and Open Table. And people don't really think about it when it comes to lawyers. There are some lawyer reviews there, but it's a broader Yellow Pages play than a pure lawyer play. So valid, but it depends on your market. And you know how David said he looks at the analytics and sees where stuff's coming in from? Well, if you're getting a bunch of referrals from Yelp, yeah, you should probably buff out your Yelp presence. But if you're not, then maybe it's not one of those initial 3 or 5 channels that you look into.
And I would second the idea that David said about a different phone number for each of your advertising avenues. We do that, and it makes it a lot easier to track.
Yeah, this is a fear that lawyers have all the time. They're like, I have a number, my clients love my number. Here's what's changing dramatically in marketing. How many of you know a phone number of any business that you use today? You don't know it because you find it through the web, and wherever that page, you Google it and it shows up in the Google local and you just click from there. Or you go up on the website So separate numbers, use tracking phone numbers. And one of the huge misconceptions is, well, if I have all these different numbers, Google's going to penalize me. No, they're not. Google sells these numbers. They're not going to penalize you for it. Having different numbers so that you can track where stuff's coming from is absolutely critical. And so that you can plug it into an analytics platform, whatever it is, including Avvo Ignite, that you can plug it in and actually see the return on that investment. Okay, so this will be our last, oh, please, yes.
Well, I'm just gonna ask on the different phone numbers, what were some of the products or companies that you use for the different phone numbers?
Call 8 would be one of them, KALL8.com. That's a great one. They don't always have unique phone numbers from a local standpoint, like a 407, but the great thing about that program is that you can set it up so that if someone were to call that number, as soon as they hang up, you'll get an email with the person's name, the phone number, and how long they were on the phone. We have that set up on all our sites, and all day long, all I see is call 8, call 8, call 8, call 8. I know exactly where my referrals are coming from because it's instant to email to you, so you know when that person hung up, you know exactly what website if you program it, and you go into their control panel and you just program it. It's wonderful.
Yeah, there are a number of these and of differing prices, and shoot any. Well, David, shoot me. I won't put you out there for that. You can shoot me an email, and I'm happy to give you a number of services that provide it. We partner with Twilio, which is a fantastic service. So. Okay, so the long tail of the web, you mentioned that, and actually all of you are engaging in a long tail strategy, your blogs, and as just a bit of a setup. So the web, historically, do you remember when you would type in, you'd type in your name and you'd get 20 search results back, maybe 15 years ago, and now you get 200,000 search results back just for your name alone. And so there's this very long tail of the web, so that Google has allowed you to now, rather than just putting in immigration Miami, they'll allow you to type in, I am a Cuban immigrant and I would like to get married, and how does that affect my green card status? And Google will actually parse that search very effectively and serve up search pages that are, they're trying to make more responsive. And so you can really use that in a legal practice. And so could you talk about how you think about the long tail of the web and how you leverage it?
Yeah, from I'll give you a ticket standpoint. You got a ticket in Alachua County, rather than just typing Alachua County traffic ticket lawyer, they're going to type in, I got a ticket from Florida Highway Patrol Dual Stalker DS234 Alachua County. Well, I have content on my website that talks about the different types of radar units, the Highway Patrol, and all of a sudden they think I'm very relevant, so I'll come up first in an organic search. And I'm seeing it more and more. People are not just using 2 and 3 words, they're typing in what it is that they want it answered, what issue they have. And if you've spoken about that or you have that information on your website because you're constantly updating it, you're going to come up. And that's, you want to be organic, number one, because that's a free listing below the AdWords.
So when you repurpose content on your blog, or when you've written stuff on your blog post, do you notice, I'm guessing that the searches that are coming in that are hitting those posts are not 2-word searches, they're more 8 or 13-word searches. Is that fair?
I think people are more willing right now to put in their specific situation in a Google search as opposed to an Avvo question, which, they'd get a specific response back.
We have to be very careful. We're constantly we need to pull that down. So,
But yeah, they'll put in their entire question in the Google search box, right? So what you need to do is you need to position yourself vis-a-vis the content on your website so that it pulls those words, because they're still just looking for words that are in there, like David said, and so that you come up. So you have to kind of anticipate the kinds of clients that you want and what they might put in this long description. Now, I'm going to take it from the other side too, and that is I have used those long searches actually to do legal research when it's outside the scope of my LexisNexis contract. And it's amazing what Google can find. Oftentimes, it finds things that LexisNexis does not find. So it's getting pretty sophisticated. And I think that the long tail of the web, as you put it, if you can kind of be a little bit clairvoyant and think about what people are going to be asking you and tailor the content of your website to it, it can be a tremendous advantage.
Just use analytics. I mean, just Google Analytics alone can help you be more clairvoyant. Google Analytics, totally free product, allows you to see the different terms that people are using to get to your different pages. Now, you may want to work with a consultant on Google Analytics, but there are all sorts of analytics packages that can help you better understand the long tail that's coming your way.
Yeah. I don't have Google Analytics. I really don't know what the actual, what they're actually entering.
Okay.
So.
Well, this is actually, I'm glad he said that because it's a good closer, because you can actually do a little bit of this and do okay if you're delivering the solid content that you talk about, and you're actually putting a strategy around it. I think one place where we're on, that Avvo's on a bit of a mission, and that's, as I talked about in the Ignite product, is that we believe that we can make all sorts of lawyers more effective marketers if they go to the next level of not only create great content, create a great core, but actually measure that and understand what's working or not. I don't know I don't know how many different conferences I've gone to, and I meet lawyers and they're still advertising in the yellow pages. And I say, so how many, clients does that drive for you, or even calls? And they're paying $25,000 a year and it's driving, and they're like, well, I'm not really sure. And for a lot of them, the answer is 0. And they're just there because everybody else is there, or at least used to be there. And so just being smarter about the channels that are working for you and your return on that marketing investment. So I'd like to thank our excellent panel. Thank you so much, every one of you. Very well done. Just thank you. I'm glad it's always fun to come to Florida and see all